Robert's residence.
Welcome home, Sydney. You're a survivor, aren't you, Sydney? What good's it to be a survivor if everyone close to you is dead? You can't save them. All you can do is watch.
Velkommen til Films TV. I denne uge er der biografpremiere på Scream 4, det 4. kapitel i Wes Cravens vildt populære gyserføljeton. Det er 15 år siden, at Drew Barrymore svarede telefonen, og et nyt gyserikon blev født. Og det er 11 år siden, at vi sidst så den såkaldte Ghostface i Scream 3. Om Scream 4 kan leve op til sine succesrige forgængere, finder vi ud af senere på ugen, men vi fik lejlighed til at tale med Wes Craven om hans seneste gyser. Craven er en af genrens helt store pionerer. Han slog sit navn fast i 1972 med den stærkt kontroversielle Last House on the Left, som handler om en pige, der voldtages af en gruppe sadistiske slyngler og derefter opsøger hævn. Filmen blev bandlyst i adskillige lande og gjorde øjeblikkeligt Craven berygtet.
The last house on the left. To avoid fainting, keep repeating. It's only a movie. Only a movie. Only a movie. Take as much as you can. Only a movie.
5 år senere instruerede han The Hills Have Eyes, også kendt som Slagterbanden på dansk. Et par knap så succesfulde film fulgte i kølvandet på The Hills Have Eyes, det er blandt Swamp Thing, baseret på den berømte tegneserie af samme navn. Men i 1984 skabte Craven gyserhistoriens måske kendteste dæmon, Freddy Krueger. Den skamferede mand jagtede sine ofre i deres mareridt, og når han slog dem ihjel der, døde de også i virkeligheden. Nøjagtigt ligesom undertegnet i sidste års films tv-udsendelse om franchisen.
Og vi ligger...
A Nightmare on Elm Street affødte adskillige efterfølgere og et væld af efterlignere, men det var ikke før Scream i 1996, at Craven atter lavede et megahit. Scream 2 fulgte umiddelbart efter, men Scream 3 fik en blandet modtagelse, og serien blev lagt på køl. I 2005 vendte Craven tilbage med varulvefilmen Cursed og den helt igennem blændende thriller Red Eye. En intens og klaustrofobisk film om en kvinde på et fly, som får en psykopatisk legemorder som sidemakker. Flere af Cravens klassikere er sidenhen blevet genindspillet. I 2005 kom det første remake, nemlig Alexandre Achats udgave af The Hills Have Eyes, som faktisk var bedre end forlægget. Last House on the Left blev genindspillet 3 år senere, og i rollen som producer havde Craven en finger med i spillet på begge film. Han havde dog intet at gøre med genindspilning af A Nightmare on Elm Street fra sidste år, men Craven er afgjort hovedmanden bag Scream 4, som har premiere i de danske biografer på torsdag.
Well, frankly, I'd kind of forgotten about it. I know about 3 or 4 years after Scream 3, Bob Weinstein, who was kind of the man behind the scenes at the studio, said that he was not going to do it anytime soon because he felt, that it needed to kind of breathe and have time for a new era to come. But of course, he was also making the Scary Movie series, so it would be hard to make a Scream while you have Scary Movies out. So it felt like after a decade, it was a good time to turn around and look back and kind of make a comment about the films that have been made and also about the various ways that kids are immersed not only in films but in multimedia and social networking and all of those things too.
But most horror franchises seem to crash and burn after just 1 or 2 movies. What's the secret to keeping them afloat?
Well, I think this 10-year wait was very good because it allowed enough time to go by for Kevin, for instance, to come up with a totally fresh idea. And for the culture itself to have changed significantly enough to make it feel like you were talking about something new rather than just the same old.
But you originally said that you didn't want to make a Scream 4 unless the script was as good as the script for the first one. Now, you made it through a controversial round of script rewrites, but do you think you've emerged with a movie that stacks up well against the original Scream?
Yeah, I do, and it's quite miraculous, but there was a lot of writing. But what ended up on screen is strong and powerful and very scary and very funny and from time to time and has something really interesting to say. I think you kind of have to figure out where cinema is going, and if you don't know, you can do remakes. So we had a lot of fun talking about the remakes and about torture porn and all of the things that have become sort of the prevailing mode of cinema in the last, say, 5 years. So.
But speaking of remakes, a lot of your films have been remade over the years. Last House on the Left, The Hills Have Eyes, Nightmare on Elm Street. Do you feel honored when younger filmmakers choose to remake your films? Or are you more annoyed that they are not out there doing their own thing and just ripping off your work instead?
Well, the situation is really totally different from that, with the exception of Nightmare on Elm Street, which, I sold the script to New Line Cinema way back in '83, whatever it was, outright and forever. I was broke, and they were the only people offering me a budget to do it. So that's owned by other people until the cows come home. So I'll never have control of that. But the other two films, Last House and The Hills of Eyes, I and my partners came back into possession of those properties after 30 years, and we suddenly realized it, and so we did those remakes ourselves, and it was kind of an experiment to do it with the European directors and shoot them out of the country, and have a director that was really gifted, that was a fan of whatever film it was that he was remaking, but also was going to make it his own and add things to it. So, I think those are very good for us. They kind of made people aware of the early films. A lot of people had forgotten about the early films. And, helped us recover from the financial crash that had hurt, I think, everybody.
I know that you were involved with the remakes of Last House on the Left and The Hills of Eyes, but what did you think of the new A Nightmare on Elm Street? Because I know you hadn't been involved with that one. You weren't consulted.
Yeah, I didn't go see it.
Oh, okay, cool.
That was my reaction. Just I'm not going to go see this.
But now, understandably, you're viewed as one of the great pioneers of the horror genre. Now, you yourself, you mentioned some of the European directors you got to make some of the remakes of your movies, like Alexandre Aja, who I greatly admire. But are there any of these young horror filmmakers working today who you see as your natural successor, as the quote-unquote king of horror?
Well, I don't know. There's certainly Eli Roth has tremendous energy and might well be doing, more extraordinary films. The director of, I don't know actually his age, but Let the Right One In, I think is extraordinarily gifted. There's a host of directors from around the world, frankly, that are doing some very interesting things. I'm sure they will be replacing us fairly soon, at least replacing me. I don't know how much longer I can go on doing this, but I think there's a lot of talent down there.
But as someone who has given countless moviegoers long-lasting nightmares, including myself, is there anything at all that scares Wes Craven?
Becoming not creative, I guess. I don't know, not being able to make movies anymore. I think that to me is one of the great joys of life, and I'm very, very happy that I've been able to do it for so long and still making audiences have a good time.
And with extremely few exceptions, all of your movies have been horror films. Have the other movie genres not really appealed to you as much?
No, I think it was much more a result of having done horror films first and kind of creating a reputation as a scary movie director. And it took really many years, 20 years at least, before I had an opportunity to do even something like Red Eye, which is more of a thriller. It was a bit self-restricting, I must say. But I always had the opportunity to do scary movies, so I just tried to make them as original and interesting to myself as I could.
Also, there's just one thing that I have to ask, because I saw on your IMDb page, I know it's often riddled with rumors, but it said that it claimed that you were once slated to direct Superman 4. Is that even true?
Yeah, I think it was. I had a meeting with Christopher Reeve, and the next day I was no longer.
Do you have any memories of what your take on Superman would have been?
No.
No? Okay. Now, also, being a huge fan of the old Evil Dead movies, obviously those weren't directed by you, but back in those days you had this kind of rivalry with Sam Raimi. You kept referring to each other's movies back in the day. Is that rivalry still going on somewhat?
I don't know. It's kind of he's gone on to make such huge films. We were never rivals so much as we just respected each other's work, and it got to be a fun thing to put each other's posters in our films.
And what's your take on the general remake fad in general? I mean, do you see it as being a symbol of the bankruptcy of creativity in Hollywood, or do you think it's the opportunity to, like you said before, present a movie for a new audience, or maybe presenting a whole new vision?
Yeah, I think there is, at the best of all possible worlds, that's what it does. It brings a very talented director in to put a kind of a new twist on it, a new vision. But I think at the same time it is a sign that there is a certain lack of originality in Hollywood right now. Although, if you take Hostel or you take those films, they were very original in their first iteration. So it's always a problem with Hollywood. I think, they either make very small budget films or they make really huge budget films. There's very little in between. And with the small budget films, they want to make a lot of money to kind of pay for their large budget films, really. So they take the safest bets that they can. And doing a remake is about as safe as you can get because the story's all worked out and, you know, people have an awareness of it already. So I think that's why they've done it. But it certainly, I felt after doing 2 of my own that that's enough of that, and you don't want to be caught in that trap.
Of which of all of your movies, and I know it's a huge resume you have, and it's littered with great classics, which one of them are you still the proudest of the most?
Oh, I don't have anyone that I'm prouder of than more. I would hard to put, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street above or below Hills of Eyes, for instance. I mean, I think, you know, once or twice a decade I get really good ones. So, you know, I'm very proud of Red Eye, but I'm also hugely proud of Scream. So, you know, I think I've hit off enough in each decade that there's 2 or 3 films in each decade that I'm very proud of.
Okay.
Det var alt for denne gang på Films TV. I ugens næste afsnit anmelder vi alle de nye premierefilm, men vi har også klip fra den danske gallapremiere på Scream 4, hvor alskens danske kendisser mødte op. På gensyn. Husk, at du let kan finde alle vores Films TV-udsendelser på hjemmesiden under Films TV-fanebladet. De ligger også i high definition på videovideo.dk, hvor du også kan finde flere udsendelser af Railgun TV, vores web-tv-program om spilverdenen. Du kan også læse flere anmeldelser og artikler på Films, som du kan diskutere i vores omfattende forum.